station, we will stop the recording. If anyone is uncomfortable with any of that, please just private message me and we can accommodate. Okay, so I am going to hit record, and I think everyone will get like a notification on your computer saying, are you okay with that? Just say you're okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I just want to say thank you all for joining. My name is Rebecca, and I'm here with APIA Vote Michigan. And I also want to thank My Family Services and MAPAC for their partnership and bringing this webinar together tonight. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to try to see if we can turn off the noise that it makes when people join in. Okay, I think we got it. Okay, great. So I'm here on behalf of APIA Vote Michigan, and APIA Vote Michigan, as many of you know, we are a civic engagement group that has been doing work around voter education, advocacy, and everything related to civic engagement. And with the onset of the pandemic last year, we found ourselves to be an organization doing direct services such as care packages, doing vaccine clinics, assisting with flood relief, and responding to direct needs of the community. And oftentimes we don't see the needs of the community as they're not always apparent. Last March, we started doing mental health workshops because, you know, we know that it's as important for a community, if not more, as compared to like some of the other services that we provide. Last year was the first time in October, we also hosted a domestic violence awareness webinar. And tonight's webinar is our second time hosting on this topic. And domestic violence can be a difficult topic to approach, especially for the API community. And for the sake of those we care about, I think it's really important and necessary conversation that we have. You know, the chances that a person knows someone who has experienced or known someone who has experienced abuse is more likely 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men have experienced some form of physical abuse in their relationship. And that's not even approaching emotional or psychological abuse. And our API community is not immune to it, even if we choose not to talk about it. You know, domestic violence affects millions each year. So tonight, our goal is to hear from our guest speakers on this topic, educate ourselves, and have an open dialogue on this topic. Where does the community stand with it? And really share resources to help the community. We'll share a ton of resources at the end of the program. But to get us started, we do have an hour. So to get us started, I do want to introduce our first speaker, Samira Ghosh. I call her Samira D, which means sister. So I would just like to read a little bit about Samira D before we introduce her, before we ask her to get us started. Samira D is the Director of Advocacy at Asian Family Support Services of Austin. She's a graduate of University of Texas at Austin and Calcutta University. An immigrant herself, she has provided long-term case management to survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault in Asian and other immigrant communities for more than a decade. She is also a board of director with APIA Vote Michigan. As part of the leadership team, she has done community education webinars, trainings on behalf of the Asian, sorry, give me 1 second. I have OFSA, what it stands for Advocacy at Asian Family Support Services for Austin, during numerous community events at stakeholder meetings, as well as for other agencies, statewide and national organizations. She has been also involved in systems of advocacy and seeking social justice for marginalized communities. And we're just so glad to have Samira D join us today to present. We know she has a ton of things going on, so we're really grateful for her to be with us today. Samira D, go ahead, please take it over.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate this lovely introduction. And thank you, APIA Vote Michigan, for inviting me. I also serve in your board, of course. Today is a very important discussion that we're about to have. We are in Domestic Violence Awareness Month. October is one. And awareness, and we need to talk about is because you guys, the community members, attending today, you are the first stop for a survivor when they are seeking help. They come to organizations like ours, we are most likely to be the last stop. So when they reach out to you, their cousins, their best friends, their sisters, their aunts, you have to provide that safe space, believing the survivor, not victim blaming, providing resources, providing the critical support that they need that will change the narrative of their life. I come to present today as a survivor myself. People in my life has made a difference and that has helped me to be where I am today, leading a team of advocates doing the work every day for the survivors in our community, for marginalized people, for immigrants. And so let's start with me sharing my screen and walking you through the. So here is, of course, we are going to do DV 101. Rebecca, are you going to able to do split screen or not really? But mind.
We do see your slides and we can see you as well.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so this is what our agency does. It provides culturally grounded therapeutic services, does crisis intervention and advocacy, does long-term case management, community education, which is very important to change hearts and minds of the people in our community, of young families, of young children, and then do legal assistance, systems advocacy. Ours is the only organization that does long-term case management, which is over the years when the survivor leaves home and goes back, the national average is 7 times. And culturally grounded services is something that we specialize in. We try to fill that gap that mainstream organizations are unable to fill. Moving. This by, of course, advocacy. We help our survivors find their own voice. We help them know their rights and be able to exercise their rights. When they stop calling our hotline and they stop calling our advocates, then we know our work is done. They can support themselves. We support them in every way possible, emotionally with some financial assistance, transitional housing, and support them by just believing them and providing that safe, confidential space that they need, because domestic violence is a shameful topic, a taboo topic in our communities. Awareness, we spread awareness among our community members, awareness for the survivor themselves so that they can educate and learn about the dynamics and they know that they are not alone. Awareness in our communities, awareness among stakeholders who are providing services, the systems that touch our survivors, the service providers, so they are aware of the needs of our survivors and the barriers they have, and they are able to provide language access and really be competent advocate for the survivors of our community. And then access to services. We provide services of various kinds, which a lot of organizations do. And this all is to help break the cycle of violence in our communities, and because we envision healthy, abuse-free Asian communities. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an awareness of domestic violence and sexual assault, and also to generally paint a picture of how gender-based violence look different in our Asian communities. So here we talk about what is domestic violence. So when we ask a lot of people, the first thing that pops to their mind is man hitting a woman. And with that impression is often kind of enforced by media, movies, Hollywood, But domestic violence is not about beating somebody. It's power and control. When one partner exercises power and control over another. And this often does not happen by one isolated incident. It happens by a series of violations, often more than one, in which the abuser establishes that control. And the tools he uses or she uses for that control are physical, emotional, sexual, financial violence. Or dismiss emotional violence. Words can hurt deeper than physical violence. The threats, the coercion, isolating the survivor from the community and family, threats of deportation, of separation from children, of international abandonment, of leaving them in the home country, those are all very real. Also, sexual violence. A lot of us Asian community folks do not know about the concept of consent. We feel that after we are married, our husband has access to our body each time, every time. And those are the education that agencies like ours need to provide to community folks. Need to know that there are financial control, which is very common in our communities, not letting a spouse get an education or get a job, or forced to give up her salary, not being able to keep her salary, not being able to access the bank account, or also giving an allowance to a partner. Those are all forms of financial control. And of course, the physical violence is not to be understated. It is, of course, there, and that is where lethality happens and is the reason people should be getting protective order. Very common thing that you often see in the world of domestic violence and advocacy, the power and control wheel, it is called. It was made by the Duluth Institute in Minnesota, and they are talking about all the ways of control, isolation, using children, male privilege, coercion. I'm not going to go into details because we are pressed for time today, but I'm happy to share the slides later on. What does domestic violence look like in Asian communities? Domestic violence manifests itself a little differently in Asian communities. One big difference is we often have multiple partners. There might be a mother-in-law, a brother-in-law, a father-in-law, in addition to the primary abuser, which is the partner in this in the scope of abuse. These abusers can sometimes work together or in isolation. They might use different tactics, but that is very common in Asian communities. Another way it is different is in Asian communities, the push and pull factors are different. In the Western cultures, domestic violence often goes in a cycle. Abuse escalates, and then there is a big breakdown of communication, a violent incident, followed by a honeymoon period, which we call the pull factor, pulling a survivor back into the relationship. But in Asian cultures, there's always a push. The situation is always intense. It's like living in a pressure cooker, because that comes from patriarchy and male privilege, and often with arranged marriage, that the abuser feels no need to apologize or to have this sweet honeymoon phase before the next cycle of abuse starts. So these are ways it's a little different. Moving on to the next slide. Some statistics. 21% to 55% of Asian women in the United States report experiencing intimate sexual violence. One in four women in the United States experience domestic violence. And the chance of the abuser changing is 1%. And it is so common, and I promise you in your lifetime, you will see a loved one who has or is going through domestic violence. This is another version of the power wheel, and is talking about similar dynamics. I will move on to the next slide. So as I was talking about how it manifests differently, I've gone through some of these before, but immigration threat is one important one in Asian cultures, threatening to deport or report the person for deportation if there is visa issues going on, hiding, holding important documents, passports, IDs, and often the fear that the survivor will be abandoned in their home country and separated from their children. When our survivors hear about the husbands buying a one-way ticket to the home country, they are so worried and so scared. Calling racial names, lying about immigration status. Often documents are not submitted, they are not filed in a timely way. Survivors do not know the status of their processes of or their immigration status that they currently have or their husbands have. Isolation from friends and family, that is a big one in our culture. When you always worry about being shamed in the community, when you are shamed in your family, not only you, your parents might be going through some harassment and they are shamed for bringing up a daughter who's not willing to comply and not be a good daughter or a good daughter-in-law. And that is something a survivor is often judged by the community, including pastors, including the priests, including the congregation members, threatening to take away children, as I already talked about that a little bit, and refusing to survivors receive job training and schooling. We will talk now about the barriers and challenges that our survivors often experience. The first one is cultural barriers. Most are collectivist. We come from collectivist societies where community comes before self. We want to be think about children, family, parents much before we think of ourselves. So that is a barrier to seeking services and coming out as a survivor, because you worry that you are going to not put your family ahead before you. Duty to one's family, that is another big thing. You know that there are expectations as an immigrant, as a daughter, as a mother, and you want to stay quiet and be in that relationship and not draw attention to domestic violence happening in your family, because that could break up your marriage, and that brings a lot of shame to our family, our grandparents, the extended family. At seeking self, we come from a culture where we are supposed to solve such personal problems by ourselves and in an intimate way, and not air dirty laundry outside and not talk about it publicly. So that is an attitude that comes with us from home countries. Honor and shame. Under no circumstance are we supposed to bring dishonor to our family, and especially with sexual violence. That is a very big taboo topic, and we are not supposed to be talking about it. Of social isolation. Often abusers are charming, they speak better English, highly qualified, respected members of the community. The survivor often feels that she will be isolated, not believed, and she will, her friends, her husband's friends, their wives will not be comfortable hanging out with her. So these are some common barriers, cultural barriers from seeking services. Economic barriers would be often job skills do not transfer. We know that lot of qualified people, highly educated people are unable to find high-paying jobs in the United States because their job skills don't convey. They might not have a driver's license or may not have a visa that qualifies them to work. So those are additional barriers. The economic ones are pretty strong in order for the survivor to stay in the relationship, and they are unable to seek help. The structural and institutional barrier is lack of understanding of social services. People often don't know that social services are free and they are confidential and they are able to seek help. They feel that their story will be compromised, and why would I be helped for free? They do not. Service providers also lack understanding of API cultures. They are often surprised when a survivor shows up to their office with their whole family because they don't know that in Asian cultures, every decision is made collectively by the whole family, and you are just not yourself. Your decisions affect family members. Whether your siblings will get married or not depends on whether your marriage is successful. So there's so many underlying things that come into play. Lack of research, of course. There's not much research happening to find out about our cultures, about our needs, about our barriers, about providing equitable services. And of course, the fear of deportation. Survivors often feel that once I'm in the system, once my name, my details are in anybody's system, I might be reported to immigration, and I might not. It might affect my children's future, their schooling. So those are some common barriers. Language. Language, of course, is a big one. A lot of our Asian survivors are limited in English, and they often do not know how to ask for interpreters. They do not know their rights, and they want to be able to navigate complex systems like the legal system. Inadequately trained interpreters, that is a very big issue. Interpreters often compromise information. Interpreters often will not translate word to word. And if they do not understand something, they will paraphrase and not capture the essence of what the survivor is trying to say in court. And it might change the narrative of the person's life if interpretation is not done correctly. So I urge you all to make sure that qualified, high quality interpretation is provided. Mainstream agents are not always allow language accessibility. Of course, mainstream organization, often there's a funding issue. They will not want to spend their budget on finding an interpreter. And that is our job to make sure that they are in compliance with Title VI, which pretty much says that any agency getting even $1 of federal funding should be able to provide interpretation, or should be providing interpretation. So we are at that part as to what part can you play. Recognize the unique barriers that API survivors are facing. Be aware of their situation and why are they not seeking services, and be mindful of providing that safe space and believing our survivors. Interrupt violence when you see or hear it. It is very important that you are an effective bystander, be able to step in a very safe way for the survivor as well as for yourself, to break the incident when it's actually happening, and to provide them with resources and information of professional agencies who can actually help. Because if you take on the role of a professional advocate, the power and control that the abuser has is shifted to you, the dependence is shifted to you, and there's always strings attached when a family member or a friend is helping, because there are certain expectations that, oh, you did not listen to me, you did not follow my advice. So those are very important. That's very important that you understand that to access a professional is important, and also advocate for language access, no matter where you are, which agency you represent. Make sure the survivor knows that she can speak in her language and be herself. She does not have to change herself in order to seek help and services. And center the survivor and her needs. It's not about you, it's not about anybody else. And if you actually believe the survivor, and that is the first step, and provide all the supportive help that is needed, then you will be able to make a difference and change the narrative. I will stop sharing now and open to questions. Questions so far?
Thank you, Samiradi. I always learn something new from you, so this is no surprise from you. I'm so glad you were able to join us and share. At this point, we are going to stop the recording to allow folks to ask any questions. You can ask the questions in the chat box or also raise your hand, and you will be able to unmute and ask your questions. And if there are any additional questions for Samiradi, please do send them, and then we will send it out to her in an email and hopefully collect those responses back, and we can share it with the resource that we're going to send out in a follow-up email. Thank you. Okay, great. We are going to move on to the next speaker. The next speaker is from My Family Services. We heard from Samiradi what is domestic violence, what that looks like, especially in the API community. And we're so grateful that we do have some services here in Michigan. I know a lot of people come to APIA Vote Michigan asking about these services, and we, at our organization, we're not able to provide it. So we always refer folks to My Family Services. They have been in our community, serving the API community with cases like domestic violence. And we're so honored to have them join us to talk about some of the resources that they provide. And a lot of people just don't even know about it, where to seek that support or where to get it from. So we're so glad that My Family Services has partnered with us and is here to share some of the resources that they provide for our community. So we have with us caseworker from My Family Services, Lalita Ghosh. Lalita, go ahead. I think we need you to unmute. You're still muted.
Thank you, and I want to thank API for also including us in this presentation. Everything that, Samira, everything that you said, I could think of several clients who brought those issues to us. And, especially with the client, they're all dependent, whether they're here on green cards or they're here on anything else, they're all dependent because of that belief of being, that sort of commitment to the community over self. And so, everything was so spot on. And Rebecca, were you able to get the slides?
I do have your slides. Just let me know when. Would you like me to pull them up now?
Sure. I just want to give a brief history of our agency and just a little bit about myself, and that I've worked with My Family Services for 5.5 years. I'm an experienced social worker. I've worked in the field for close to 35 years, and after retirement, I came to work for which has really, it has been like the most rewarding job of all my 35 years of working in clinical social work. So I just want to share a little bit about our history. We're an agency that's over 30 years old, and it was established in 1986 to provide assistance to Asian Indian families and individuals in need. And it began as Michigan Asian Indian Family Services, but since it has formed, My Family Services has expanded to offer services to all South Asians in Michigan. We kept the name My as it means mother in many South Asian languages, and we hope to be a similar type of comforting presence to our clients. Many of our clients, when they come to us, they come to get that comfort that they would get from their mothers, and the reassurance and support, and also to know that we are going to do for them as much as we can to make them feel safe and assure them that the system is also going to help them. The next slide, Rebecca. So we provide the direct services to offer non-judgmental, confidential, empathetic, and culturally sensitive counseling and support. And I know from personal experience with my clients that especially when if they've been in jail or they don't know what's going on, when they see us coming in, when they get out of jail or in court, I feel that they take a sigh of relief. And many of
Did we lose Lalita? Okay. I don't see her. Let's give it like a few seconds to see if she's able to join back up with us. I don't see her. Okay, we will. I know everyone's pressed for time. I am going to ask if Falguna can pick up on where Lalit, or not where pick up, but if she can present next. Falguna used to also work with My Family Services, and now she's a senior program manager at Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence, who's also going to share some resources with us as well. Falguna, go ahead.
Thank you, Rebecca. And just to let everyone know, I'm sure we're going to hear more from My Family Services because they offer a lot of valuable support and for survivors. So we will definitely get back to them. I'm going to be brief for sharing resources. Just one moment. Looks like there's some issue happening. Rebecca, if you can share the PDF version.
Yeah, we could see your screen. We were able to see it.
You can see the slides?
We were able to, not anymore.
Okay, sorry about that. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Are you able to see the slides?
Yes, it's loading
For
up
some
now.
reason, it's going blank for me.
Okay. It's a blank screen. Okay, here we go.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Recording in progress.
So I work for the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence, which is a statewide agency that provides support and services to agencies like My Family Services and across the state who are providing services to survivors directly for both domestic violence, sexual assault, and now even human trafficking. So we promote efforts to empower survivors and end domestic and sexual violence through our technical assistance and training efforts. We do prevention efforts across the state. We do policy advocacy, and we do have a survivor law clinic within our coalition, but mainly to support agencies that are providing support to survivors. So something new that happened over the past couple of years is that the state of Michigan decided to have a sexual assault hotline for the state. So to bridge the gap for survivors who are not aware of existing services in their communities. So we have a sexual assault hotline that is available for survivors that provides 24 hours service. Your survivors are able to call or chat or text, and our advocates would be there to support survivors. Family members are able to also receive support, and also advocates who are looking for support, or sometimes advocates after serving survivors, they need time for processing and may or may not have internal capacity for providing that support. So they are welcome to reach out to our hotline to receive that support. And even if they're looking for resources across the state, our advocates are happy to connect advocates and survivors to those existing resources. I'm very excited to share that the state has also decided to have a DV hotline to bridge the same gap and be available for survivors 24/7. So this is something that is exciting and is happening very soon. And definitely it's for survivors and family members and advocates who need and look for resources. We will be providing some bridging the gap where some agencies are not able to provide 24/7 hotline services. Then our hotline advocate will work with those agencies to see how we can connect survivors to those agencies. Our website is a resource for trying to identify which DV and sexual assault agencies are across the state, apart from our hotline. So definitely feel free to check it out. And as highlighted, yes, the biggest service provider for our community, specifically South Asian community, is My Family Services, doing amazing work for past so many years. And that's where I learned a lot of stuff. My initial, it's through that organization, the work I did there, and the trainings I received is where I learned about domestic violence and how it impacts survivors. I would not have realized what I witnessed in my own life, even as a child, was domestic violence, if not for that opportunity. So very, very grateful that an agency like My Family Services exists and serves the community. Muslim Family Services is also another agency that provides services to survivors. They are located in Hamtramck area. They have a wide range of services, but they also do specific services to provide support to survivors. Pakistan Women's Association of Michigan is also another agency that supports survivors in their own through a home that they provide support. I am listing the mainstream organizations that are provided in the Metro Detroit area, but across the state, there are similar agencies. And I share these mainstream resources only because our API communities across the state, and it is valuable for them to be aware of the existing DV and SA agencies across the state. And then as a state agency, we are able to also encourage agencies to connect with agencies like My Family Services so that survivors can be supported with additional supports. So that is something that we would definitely encourage for API community across this Michigan to access available resources in their own respective communities. So for sexual assault services, there are a range of services that different agencies provide. So Avalon Healing Center priorly it was called WC Safe, but recently they've had a change in their name and it's now Avalon Healing Center. They're located in Detroit, but serve Wayne County. First Step is also a Wayne County. Haven is in Oakland County. Turning Point is in Macomb. Safe House Center is in Washtenaw County. But all these agencies do provide services for the broader communities based on survivor needs and tend to be very open to connecting with local API resources to better support survivors from different ethnicities. And also I would like to mention to support LGBTQI plus communities, we do have Equality Michigan that supports statewide. They do victim services, so they are a great resource if community members are from the LGBTQI community to connect with them in addition to receiving services from other agencies.
This meeting is being recorded.
LGBT Detroit is also another similar agency. It's located in Detroit, and Family Equality is also it's an agency that provides national and state level resources, but each of them have their own unique features that the services they provide. Ruth Ellis Center focuses on youth. And then one of the things that we at the coalition talk about is, Sister Samira did mention about, being Survivor Center, being there for them. And it's also important for us to remember that they are not only a DV survivor, right? Each one of us, we come with all these multiple identities, and all these identities and the experiences we have with systems, with community, impact the way we see the world. And the supports we need will vary based on all those different identities. So it is with keeping that in mind. And then, survivors can't leave one identity or the other. I think even the examples that were shared by the first speaker, and then I'm sure Lalita will also share, is that there are various factors that impact a survivor when they are dealing with abuse. So for that purpose, I've included some of these different resources that would be helpful when we're supporting survivors, right? It would be agencies that can provide educational and other kinds of supports. And then there are agencies that provide. Michigan Legal Help specifically is a very good website-based resource, which gives a lot of valuable information when you're just looking for information. When you have questions, legal related questions, it has a lot of very useful attorney-driven information, which gives clarity on what might be the processes in here in Michigan. So it's a valuable resource to explore when someone is trying to consider different options or if they are in different situations. Michigan Immigration Rights is another agency that supports immigrants and survivors. Michigan Disability Rights is something that I know for sure that sometimes we don't think about accessibility needs of survivors based on what we see or we don't see, but there are so many invisible disabilities that people deal with, and survivors are those individuals. So thinking about what might be those additional supports that we need to provide for survivors is something Michigan Disability Rights Coalition is a great resource for connecting with agencies that might be supporting different areas of the state. The MDHHS assistance programs also is that, but they have their own limitations. So keeping that in mind, but it is resources, just like Sister Samira said, those people are not aware of the services that are available, free and available. So sharing this as more as information so that we can share it with more people in our community so that they know that they're not alone. If I'm over time, let me know. I think I will end here. My slides will be shared. So thank you very much for the opportunity, APIA Vote.
Thank you, Falguna. I met Falguna many, many years ago when she was the executive director at My Family Services. And since then, whenever we hear someone needs support, I'm always running to Falguna, and then she chases me back to My Family Services. So we're all connected, and it's beautiful. Thank you and I'm just so happy to see, Falguna at a new organization now and doing much more work for the API community. Lalita ji is back. We lost you for a minute, but we're so glad you're back. And I know we are running a little over time, but I want to give Lalita ji the opportunity to go ahead and also present the remaining of our slides. So Lalita ji, go ahead. You have to go ahead and unmute yourself. I think you're still muted.
I will be dropping off because I have a hard stop at 5. I have another meeting. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending.
Thank you, Samarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Samira. Very nice to meet you. So, can we go back to my slides, Rebecca?
Yep. I'm pulling those up right now. Is this where we want to continue from?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So, the services we offer are, we try and use like a holistic approach and offer services based on what our clients need. So tailor things to each client's needs. And so we offer the non-judgmental, confidential, empathetic, and culturally sensitive counseling and support. And if needed, a caseworker or a volunteer will accompany clients to provide support, interpretation, or assistance in navigating through the legal system. Next slide, please. So, My Family Services provide support for clients who have experienced abuse and abandonment and threats and every facet of abuse that you can think of. The majority of our clients have experienced abuse from the spouses, family members, the community, financial abuse. I have several clients actually who have been starved by their spouses and given very limited amounts of food. Marriage counseling, mental health issues as it relates to domestic violence, substance abuse, adjustment to a new culture. That is sometimes confusing for some of our clients because they've been so isolated that they haven't really been exposed to much. And many of these spouses isolate them from not only from their families, but also from their own communities here. So they don't really have any connections. I've had several clients who didn't really know a soul outside their spouse. And then they also had, in addition to that, they had the language barriers. We also work with we have a senior program, grief and bereavement support, workplace challenges, and we do have people amongst our volunteers and our board who have connections and are able to direct some of our clients to job opportunities. We have connections with the mainstream organizations such as the shelters, to attorneys, community mental health resources, and to therapists. Next, please, Rebecca. We offer temporary emergency housing assistance to victims of domestic violence, but we don't have a home, but we are connected to just about every community agency in our area. And so we try and work with those agencies that we have. Sometimes we can provide some emergency housing for a short period of time, maybe put somebody up in a motel because they have to get out of that situation that they're in. We refer clients to emergency shelters, family counselors, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, family law and immigration attorneys. That seems to be a big one in terms of, because when our clients are getting out of their marriages, that many of them are on dependent visas. And because of that, they feel completely lost and don't have any idea what's going to happen to them Many don't want to go back to India because many of the same reasons that Samira was talking about is, family issues. Will other children in the family be able to get married? Where is this, how is this family viewed in the community? So because of those reasons, they don't want to go back. And so when we refer them to immigration attorneys, they present them with a lot of options that are available. To general physicians, job training, employment assistance. And we, through the STOP program, we ourselves offer some training to clients. It's just maybe some computer assistance, beginning computer assistance training, and some other educational services. And then we can also refer clients to community colleges or colleges to help them get further training. A lot of my clients, I've noticed, have been very, very qualified, but their husbands, spouses, would not allow them to work. So many of them have actually ended up getting better jobs than their husbands had. So, which has been very empowering to them. Next is prevention, awareness training workshops for community members, which is also put on through our agency, and senior services, senior issues, senior support services. And that's ongoing and has been very helpful to many seniors in our community. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So the process is the client calls into the agency. We do not accept calls from a friend saying, oh, call my friend or call my sister or my daughter because they're in this situation. The client has to reach out to us. If there's a language barrier, then we assess and try and figure out how are we going to handle this. And the caseworkers have different language proficiencies. So we're able to handle most of the cases that come through. And then once that comes through, then an assessment is done by the intake person. And then that person refers a client to a social worker in the agency if they need services. But some clients, people may only be calling in for referrals. So, and we do that as well. But depending on what we always ask the client, what do you want? A client may not be ready to make that next big step, but may want to learn about their options. And I've had clients sometimes call me back after 2 years to say, we talked about that then. I'm ready now because now it's reached that certain point. He started to abuse the children. What is it that pushes them over the cliff in terms of getting on with their lives and moving to a new phase? The clients generally keep us informed of what their needs are and the services they need, and we also assess. It's not just what the client says in terms of what they need, but we also assess, and sometimes they may not be aware of services that we offer and what we can provide. And the client support ends, of course, when they decide they don't need our services any longer. And the best thing is that when a client doesn't call you any longer, you know that they're on their way. Next, Rebecca. So I kind of already went through this. So usually we return calls within 24 hours, unless it's on the weekend. Because if it is an emergency, if a person needs to go to a shelter, they need to call the police, we are not that person to call. So we do not come in when the crisis is happening immediately. That's when you call the police. and get 911 and call 911 and get the police involved so that you or the client is safe. So my family, this is just about a grant that was awarded to us. We have annual events. Sorry. We have annual events as fundraisers. We have a fundraiser in the spring, and then we have one in the summer, and of course, the biggest and most lavish and wonderful one is the holiday banquet, which requires so much effort from our board and our volunteers, and is always a great hit. And people really look forward to attending that event. And I encourage all of you, when you hear about it, to please sign up and come and attend the event. You won't be disappointed. So our mission is to provide confidential and professional services and promote awareness of mental health problems, domestic violence, and other issues through community education and outreach. Provide confidential and professional services. That's where our clients are the most doubtful. Are you going to go tell my friends? Are you going to tell my community? And we assure them that this is completely confidential. We do not, even if they were referred by a friend, the friend may call to find out, has this person got services? Basically, we don't know what you're talking about. And if you say this person told you something, well, you ask that person. Don't come to me because I really can't talk to you about anything. So the clients, we have to reassure them, assure them and reassure them of confidentiality and make them feel comfortable to talk, because the issues they talk about are very personal and make them feel very vulnerable. Our vision is to be the primary source for intervention and prevention services for the South Asian community of Michigan. And our goal is we envision a community where My Family Services is a household name. And these are the areas we serve, all the way from Afghanistan in the west to Myanmar in the east, and India, Sri Lanka to the south, and Pakistan to the north. Thank you.
Thank you, Lalita Ji. This is great. Like I said, a lot of the time we don't even know some of the great services that are being provided in our backyards. So thank you so much for taking the time to share the resources with us. And we will send out an email with the resources that Falguna shared, as well as Lalita Ji shared. So thank you again. I know we are over time, but I do want to ask if anyone has any questions for Falguna or Lalita at this time that they can take in the next few minutes before we end the session. And thank you all for still staying on with us when we're 15 minutes over time. This is great. We still have 26 people with us. Any questions, comments? We want to hear it all. Okay, I guess we don't have any comments or questions, and I don't want to keep folks any longer. Thank you, thank you. I'm seeing a lot of thank yous coming in. Thank you guys for coming. I couldn't have done it with, I couldn't have done this without the resources and the speakers today. We do have a question from Lynn. What is the best way to get updates and invites to My Family Services events? Lalita Ji, how can someone get updates for events?
She can share the email address right now, and I can write it down because we have some events coming up.
Okay.
I'll make a note about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mona, if you wanted to just quickly say hi, you're also with My Family Services. If you want to just introduce yourself really quick, that would be great. Now that you're already unmuted.
Okay, I'm Mona Sashital, and I've been with My Family Services since a very long time, 2007. And we Lalita, and I see quite a few of My Family Services members joining in, and I'm so happy and that everybody joined in here. And hopefully you got some valuable information. You can spread the word about My Family Services. Thank you, Falguna, for sharing the resources and including My Family Services in your resource list. And Rebecca, again, thank you so much for inviting My Family Services to this very important information sharing event. And I hope that we do this more often. Collaborative efforts are always welcome, and we will participate as whenever we can.
Thank you, Mona. It's our honor. Thank you very much. Okay, great. Someone asked if we will share the recording. Yes, we will share the recording. We will do some editing to just make sure that we don't get any questions or anyone's comments, and we will upload that on our YouTube channel, so you will have access to that link. And additionally, we will share out the resources and the slides that were sent by the presenters. So thank you, everyone. We really do appreciate everyone joining.
I missed noting that email address. So can she send an email to info@maifs.org? Oh, okay, I get it. Okay.
Well, I think I saw that in Lolita's email. I will share My Family Services email. So if anyone wants to sign up for email updates or any of that.
Yeah, that would be good.
Probably just ask, do I attend a My Family Services event? So you will be having more folks coming to your holiday event. At least someone already asked about that.
That would be great to see everyone there.
Great, thank you.
I just want to say one more thing, that on our website, our events are posted on our website.
Great, and we will share the website in follow-up emails. So rest assured that we will share all the resources that have been shared tonight. So thank you again, everyone. I do not want to keep folks any longer. Thank you so much. I will be here for the next few minutes, but you guys are all welcome to go enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you.
Recording stopped.